Sherlock Holmes is arguably the world's most famous fictional detective, and possibly the most fun. A classic character solving ingenious crimes from the heights of aristocracy to the depths of the criminal underworld. What's not to like? I like writing crime stories, so I wanted to know what made Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's stories so popular. Despite the murders and burglaries being anything but formulaic, there's a certain structure to Holmes's investigations that we can actually learn from as writers. This structure makes a great basis for writing our own short stories with new detectives. So, how do you write a Sherlock Holmes style short story? Watch on, dear Watson. Before we get into Sherlock Holmes though, I'm going to have to give you a brief spoiler alert. I am going to talk about the end of some of Sherlock Holmes's stories, but I figure they've been out for a little while. So, tip 1, develop an intriguing character. All stories start with character. Sherlock Holmes is notable for his skills of deduction and his encyclopedic knowledge of everything from train timetables to curare. At the same time, he's arrogant, a poor communicator, and a somewhat mediocre violin player, depending on who you ask. He's interesting because he solves crimes almost impossible for the reader to grasp. We're left in the same place as Watson and his clients, in awe of Sherlock Holmes's intelligence. So what can we learn from his character? Your detective needs to have a mode of investigation that sets them apart from other detectives. Whether that's the cynical, fast talk of the hard-boiled gumshoe or the dilettante fun of Phryne Fisher, they need to have a unique way of solving crimes. This will determine how they interact with the world and how they win the day. It's also important to give your detective flaws too. It's even better when their greatest asset is also their greatest flaw. For Holmes, his arrogance brings immediate conflict with his ability to investigate crimes because his personal skills often get in the way. My second tip is to start with the ingenious crime and work backwards. Ever since an orangutan perpetrated Poe's murders in the Rue Morgue, crime fiction has sought the most preposterous crimes to entertain the reader. The crimes in Sherlock Holmes stories are outrageous. I mean, these include murder by venomous snake in The Adventure of the Speckled Band, a rock tied to the trigger of a revolver in The Problem of the Thor Bridge, a rare diamond in the belly of a Christmas goose in The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, a cut gas pipe disguised by the smell of paint in The Adventure of Shoscombe Old Place, and creating the illusion of a giant demonic hound in The Hound of the Baskervilles. To write a clever mystery, it's better to start with how the crime was perpetrated and work backwards. What clues can you give to arrive at this conclusion? How will they find out what really happened? Tip 3 is to use the structure of a Holmesian story. Now, I've read enough of these to know that Sherlock Holmes stories have a common structure, which is something that we can use to shape our own work. First up is the opening. The stories usually start at the detective's home or headquarters. Holmes is often doing something relevant to the investigation or forecasts the appearance of a client. From here, he receives a summons in the form of a visit, telegram, or letter from the client. A detailed setup of the crime is given here. He will often have a private discussion with his offsider, usually Watson. Then the investigation phase begins at the location of the crime, often in disguise or under false pretenses, and clues are obtained through this process. Finally comes the confrontation with the criminal. The mystery is revealed, although Holmes has likely figured it out on page 1. The story concludes with the aftermath of the crime. If you are writing a longer story, such as a novel, the investigation and confrontation steps would be repeated with multiple clues and characters until reaching the solution to the crime. My fourth tip, create a great offsider. I'd be remiss in not mentioning Watson, Sherlock Holmes's perpetual offsider and narrator for most Holmes adventures. Watson provides a perfect foil to Holmes's arrogance. He's charming with the ladies, where Holmes has near zero interest in flirting. Watson also has a greater medical, sporting and military knowledge than Holmes, whether Holmes would like to admit it or not. Watson's patience and even his ignorance is helpful in solving crimes. Look at the characteristics of your detective. Who could be a complementary foil for your character? You don't want their skills to overlap, but there needs to also be a reason that they're working together. Tip 5, fill your world with interesting characters. While your detective might be a lone wolf, they can't investigate without meeting some intriguing characters along the way. Sherlock Holmes stories have often hilarious or chilling characters from all facets of London life. I mean, think of Professor Moriarty, Irene Adler, Mycroft Holmes, Inspector Lestrade. Even the side characters have their own motivations and quirky personalities in the Sherlock Holmes universe. Make sure each person in your story occupies an original space in the story and try to make them as unusual as possible. While I could crack some jokes about writing a Holmes-style story and being elementary, studying the structure of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's short stories has helped me become a better writer. I loved revisiting some of his short stories, and there's nothing better than reading the originals to learn from one of the best crime writers the world has ever seen, or at least the most ingenious. I'm Kat Clay, I'm a Melbourne crime writer. If you enjoyed that video, you like nerd stuff, writing, please hit subscribe, and thanks so much for watching.